Hello and welcome to IASPrimers. My name is Shubhashish and you're watching today's daily news analysis. Now today we are covering the following topics. I don't have a mains-based question for answer writing, but yes, I do feel that this topic seems quite interesting. So in fact, this article was in itself shaped as a question and answer. So we can work on this. This will be helpful for our GS3 Science and Tech. Great. Now starting with the first topic. So center bearing full duty cut burden. So this is concerning the drop in the fuel prices. So what really happens is that the fuel prices are taxed pretty heavily in our country, and there is a share of tax of the center as well as the states. Now when the fuel prices had fallen down post Manmohan Singh era, in the initial year the crude prices were very, very low. So during that time, let's say when it was $30 per barrel, $40 per barrel, even $60 per barrel, the tax rate were very, very high, and the pre-existing prices, something like the Congress times, so they were more or less kept intact. But with the crude prices increasing, they're reaching till $110, especially after the Ukraine war, the prices have soared up like anything. And therefore, there is a lot of criticism of the government, particularly of the center. But the share of taxes, the burden of tax in the total price of the fuel is shared by both the center as well as the state. So center state says that we have reduced the taxes, and it is for the states to reduce their tax, the share of tax as well, to give relief to the end consumer. Now here it says, the center is saying that the tax that has been released, the duty that has been brought down, it is from the road and infrastructure cess. So cess is kind of a tax on tax, you should know this. So on a particular tax, there is additional tax. So that is known as tax. And the cess, when the money is collected, it is allocated for that particular thing only. For example, if tax is collected, if a cess is levied on a certain tax, then that cess, that money that is accrued, will have to be utilized for, let's say, road and infrastructure purpose only and no other purpose. So that is cess. And another category of tax is known as surcharge. That can be levied anywhere. There is no restriction whatsoever. Now naturally the states, particularly the non-BJP states, they are saying that see, we have very little resources, especially after the pandemic. There is a lot of stress on the economy. If you say that the burden of taxes have to be reduced by the states, then you have to give us more grants. The center devolves money, whatever taxes are collected, it devolves money back to the states. So it says that money has to be devolved. So that is what Congress P. Chidambaram is saying. And likewise, the state of Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Maharashtra are complaining about it, that we cannot do it. It's very, very hard. Now, interestingly, you can take note of this article over here, this point over here. This gives us some important facts about some of the achievements of the government and somewhere about the budgetary allocations. So it tells us that development expenditure from 2014 to 2022, Modi era, Modi 1.0, Modi 2.0, so that is at 90.9 lakh crore. Then in this, the subsidy burden, that is subsidy that is spent on food, fuel and fertilizers, it is at 24.85 lakh crores. So 24.85 lakhs. So you can, mention this, you can use this elsewhere also. Then capital creation, it is at 26.3 lakh crore. Very, very important. In fact, recently the UPSC asked us a question as to how public sector spending can spur economic growth. So on that lines also, we can use it. Now moving on to this, I think most of you, even if you didn't read the newspaper, you would have seen or heard about it. So houses of suspects in Assam violence raised. In fact, today morning, when we watched the TV, this thing was coming, but it didn't tell us the entire thing. And that entire thing is very, very important from the point of view of GS2. So it says, the story goes as this, that there is this police station in which a certain fish trader was taken into custody, and he was asked for a bribe of rupees 10,000 and a duck. So a fisherman is in custody, and we expect that in the prison some beating had taken place, torture had taken place, and that resulted in the death of this person. So this led to anger, and incidentally he happened to be a Muslim. So this led to anger in the community, and they raised this, they did for arson in the police station. So they burned the police station. Now, as a consequence of this, they say that the house of the suspects or people of the nearby, suddenly the realization came in the administration that all of these establishment is illegal, and they decided to bulldoze it. Right? A lot of bulldoze politics is there in the news anyways. Clear. Now, we can say of two things. One is vindictive thing that is going on. First of all, this incident should not have taken place. Then from the GS2, as I said, custodial death. Custodial death, police torture is a very, very important theme, and it concerns police reforms. In fact, we should know about the Prakash Singh Committee report also, and the Law Commission data on the same. So I'll share it. I have actually answers written on it. I'll eventually share it with you. If some other case comes up, I'll do it definitely. Or if you want it, you can just connect with me on my Telegram, t.me/IASPrimers. So this is it. I'll try to frame this in a case study also. Right now I couldn't do it because here we find the administration itself a bit on the wrong. Maybe have to change that story a bit. So we'll do it. Now this is a local news. We naturally tend to miss it, but local news are very, very important because it tells us about routine governance issues. So in that sense, it is important. So it is concerning this Delhi, we all know, this is the Delhi edition, and floods take place, right? In all cities, I think all of us, wherever we live in, floods, urban floods is a concern. So before the monsoon, a city is required to do some desilting work. Storm drains have to be prepared so that excess water that percolates goes into the drains. It doesn't lead to flooding. That is the reason basically. So desilting has to be done. This is one of the measures. Now here what is happening, what we can see over here, that there is a tension between the elected state government, so state government which is controlled by an opposition party, Aam Aadmi Party, and the local body, that is the MCD, which is responsible for the urban affairs, so which is controlled by the BJP. So we see some sort of a tension between the state and the state government and the local bodies over here. So they are complaining that the Aam Aadmi Party, the state government, that local body is not doing good work, while they are doing the opposite. They are saying they are putting the blame onus on the state government. So this blame game is going on over here. Okay, so this we see, we can correlate this with cooperative federalism. We can correlate this with urban issues and urban challenges, urban governance, and yes, naturally urban floods. And in 2016, UPSC did ask us a question on urban floods. In fact, I have an analysis on the same. And you must know about the guidelines on urban floods that were created by the NDMA. So in fact, it was as a consequence of this. So Chennai floods had taken place 2015, around that time, some other floods before this. So the NDMA had created the guidelines also, and in 2016 there was a question on the same subject. Okay, and that was basically how these urban floods are different from normal floods, something on those lines. Next we have again a local news over here. Parties to announce nominees for Karnataka Legislative Council. Now you have studied about this, maybe not so much given this so much focus in your Lakshmikant polity book. So this is how you can correlate the static that you say, polity, with your current affairs. You can start to correlate here. Now Karnataka, being a big state, it has two councils. One is the Legislative Assembly, Vidhan Sabha as we call it. So this is, it has its members which are directly elected amongst the people. So normal elections take place. And then we have the Legislative Council, that is the upper house. So there are two houses. Just like in India's parliament, we have Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Likewise, there are certain states, not all big states have two houses, but in this case there is. So it is telling us about elections to the Legislative Council. So Congress particularly, they have to share the names for the elections. So here I have added some material for you, so you can read this. And Vidhan Parishad, what is the composition of the Legislative Council and who elects them? That is very, very important. So this you must know. In fact, a question on this lines can be asked, like these can be mentioned, which of the following is true with reference to the elections to the Legislative Council, and these statements can be given and some of them can be tweaked over here. Now I have a question before you. Who would be conducting the elections to the Legislative Council, as you can see over here? Which institution? Is it the Election Commission of India or is it the State Election Commission? So this you mention in the comment section. Next we have Sangeetha Kalyani Awards announced. Now we should know about this. Naturally for prelims we should know about this. For UPSC we really don't need to know about the names. Yes, for other state exams we have to know about them, but not in this UPSC exam. Here we need to know, okay, find is award is associated with which of the following. So here we have, it is awarded yearly, mind you, to a Carnatic musician by the Madras Music Academy. Right. Fine, so you get it, Carnatic, something that is from the south, and other music is Hindustani. So Hindustani is not under consideration, only Carnatic music, only that classical music is taken into account over here. This one just mentions the list of people who have been awarded over the years. Now they are giving award to 3 members over here, 2020, 2021, 2022, because this award takes place physically. So because of the COVID, nobody could come and hear their music. So this thing could never take place. Okay. Now from exam point of view, again, one is this prelims thing. Then you should know about this Indo-Islamic, the Hindustani music, that you should know, and difference between the Carnatic music. So you should know the key differences. In fact, some of them you would have noticed by now, maybe you won't have realized as such. Have you heard the Srivalli song? The song of that Pushpa movie. So there are these 2 versions. One is this South version, and so singer sung by the South who would have been trained in the Carnatic music, and the one who is from the North, right? I think Javed Ali, and many other songs actually of South. You would notice a lot of emphasis, apart from the music instruments used, you will also notice a lot of emphasis on voice modulation in Carnatic as compared to the Indian version, the North Indian version. So that you see, take note of this next time you hear this. Now this is, learners need to move from being consumers of information to being producers. And in fact, I shared this specifically for you guys. All this thing is going on, that passive learning. I say something or others also, whenever we're teaching something, it is passive learning. You are basically consumers of content. But real learning takes place when you are producers, when you research, when you think out of the box, when you're given that challenge. So for making education, now moving to GS1, now to make education more effective, in our country, the quality of education is very, very poor. So we say that universalization of education is taking place. We have more inclusion, more people joining the education system. But at the same time, we hear that the quality of education is very, very poor. So one of the measures over here can be stated in this light, that what can be done, that student at the heart of the process, put the student at the center, student being the producers, encourage them to focus on research, encourage them to develop new content that would lead to sustained learning. So that is the learning that you can take over here. So focus on inquiry, creativity, critical thinking, communication skills, research-based learning. So these are certain things that needs to be inculcated in the student. Okay, so this is a critique of the wheat policy. This editorial, particularly of the Hindu newspaper, is normally a critique, a very, very strong critique. And this is, we have some good points over here. Okay. So initially, in fact, in this Hindu newspaper, on the left side, you would find this editorial, and on the right side is the detailed article on the same. So I have taken the shorter one, and we don't really need to go deep into this also. Nobody is going to ask you about the wheat poll unless you're appearing for the interview right away. Okay. So the government, in fact, Prime Minister, at very some time back before this announcement was made that we will not be exporting wheat. So the government made an announcement on May 13 that we will not be exporting wheat because there is a concern of food security. So concern over food security. Food security concern, a number of factors because of this, because of inflation, high inflation, because of impact of Russia-Ukraine war. Ukraine is like the wheat bowl. So a lot of wheat cultivation takes place, and now all that area is being blasted. Then overall there is a shortage of wheat, even in the public distribution system. Then the heat levels that have been there, that has also resulted in low output. So food security is a cause of concern. So the government said, you are not exporting wheat outside, because naturally if the wheat goes outside, then the farmers will get, we will get, consumers, food of security will get harmed because of this. But few days back, the government had said, few days before this May 13th, they said that, we are leading Prime Minister Modi, so we are doing very, very well, and everything is fine. So there is food security, our country will step up, so Indians will step up, and we'll be exporting wheat. Then that comment had come from the government that, the farmers will get benefit because of this, because the food prices, because there is shortage outside, the food prices are elevated. So the food prices are increased, so the farmer will get greater profit. But eventually, very soon, there was a flip-flop on the side of the government. Now, at the UN Global Food Security Call to Action, so at a summit of United Nations, the government is saying that, this is necessary because this kind of freedom is required. Naturally, if India stops exporting to the outside, naturally, it is going to affect the overall global food security. So they say that, each country has its own priorities, and we have to be concerned about the food security of our own country first. So that is what our representative had said at this summit, which was backed by the Secretary of Commerce. Right, so this is there. Now what is happening? Flip-flop on the part of the government, fine, maybe we will have repercussions at the WTO, but what we see over here, that the government, because of this interference over here, the farmers stand to lose out of profit. The farmers will lose out. Plus, when we stop exporting, naturally, it is quite possible that other players, other countries like Thailand, Vietnam, etc., they may grab hold of a market share. So they may displace us from the market. So that can also take place. As it happened some time back, so 15 years ago, when India took about 2 years to lift its ban on export of non-basmati rice, when Thailand and Vietnam had moved in to take full advantage. Right, so these are certain pros and cons before us. Poor recovery, increasing delays mar IBC resolution process. Now, we should know about what is this insolvency and bankruptcy code. So when a company is operating, normally a company would be borrowing money from the bank, right? Or let's say from the lenders, people who have given money to the company. So they would have given some principal amount, and this company would be required to return this money plus with some interest. But if the company fails, if the company is not generating revenue, and if the company is spending money, then naturally they will not have money to pay back. And when this stage comes, when the lenders are not able to recover this money, this is known as insolvency. So the companies are known as insolvent. Clear? Okay. Now, under such scenario, typically what can the company do? The company can say that, see, management can say, see, there are certain problems, there are certain market risks. Please restructure a loan or reduce the interest. Let us work together for a longer time. We will definitely take care of the situation. But if that is also not taking place, then eventually there will be no other option but to sell this company, liquidate everything, all the assets, and return the money to the lenders or the creditors. Yeah. Right. So this has to be done. Okay, so this is so this mechanism has been created. So this problem was taking place for a very long time, that the companies were not returning money, and the banks were, they were evergreening the loans that they had taken place. Naturally, after a point of time, let's say you buy a car or something, naturally after a point of time, that loan has to stop, that outgrowth from the bank has to stop. But to keep that project viable, the banker felt that, why not just keep giving money, keep this under the carpet. Nobody, if this thing comes out that this loan that was sanctioned has become an NPA, that will be a problem. So to sort out this problem, the government came up with the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. So they created a mechanism. So there were already certain mechanisms like Sarfaisi, Lok Adalats, debt recovery tribunals, but that were not being sufficient enough. There were long delays in solving this problem or liquidating the assets. So they decided to create this Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. Now under this, what happens is, moment this resolution is passed, moment this process is passed under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, that is, code means a kind of a law, then in that case, the thing goes before a tribunal, right? So it goes before a tribunal. The control of the company's assets goes to the insolvency professionals, people who are expert in dealing with the insolvency. If they could recover the company, well and good, else they would liquidate it, and whatever money they get, they will give it to the banks or the creditors, so those people will get it. And the entire process is regulated by the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India. Now, since it is as a result of this Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, which is created by a law of the Parliament, therefore this is a statutory body. Now the time span for resolving this is 330 days. Right, so it is about 330 days. So it is saying that this article is saying that the recovery that is taking place is very, very slow, and this timeline is not being met. So there is poor recovery and increasing delays. In fact, this again I could have shared a mains based question, which I'll eventually do. So I'll do it for you. Now coming to the last article. Yeah, so coming to the last article today, and this is of my interest because this is rare. IBC will come time and again. We will have a lot of opportunities with that. All the events over here except for this AI thing, which is interesting. So before going forward with this AI chips, AI obviously means artificial intelligence. So before going forward on this, so you know artificial intelligence, if you know, it is about training a machine. It is about training a machine. So a lot of data is fed to that. So we can also call it as deep learning based application. So a lot of information, a lot of data is fed into this, and not naturally a lot of data is being fed, a lot of processing is taking place. So based on that, they are to take decisions. Machines normally don't take decisions, we take decisions or we execute that machine. But here, based on the data, they are to mimic human decisions. I think best example is this Google speech to text, or when we say something to a Google assistant. So what is it happening? A lot of data was fed, a lot of language was fed to this, and eventually it is able to understand even our accent, not just our words but accent, and give us a relevant response. And you would have realized in the last 5 years this is becoming very, very accurate. Then the Tesla cars. So there are a lot of applications of artificial intelligence. So be it in wearable electronics, drones, robots, whatever, messenger, speech to text, banking, finance. So this is being done over here. So this is done via the deep learning based applications, which is also known as active neural network or deep neural network. So you see, normal computer, all of us like Intel computer or whatever, normally we may call it as CPUs, will not be sufficient for all this task. No, especially when big data is involved. Big data, let's say at the government level, no, it will not be able to do it. Or weather forecasting, no, it will not be able to do it. So one is the CPU thing. Then you must have heard about GPU, especially the gamers, NVIDIA card. So there are these GPUs. So GPUs are graphic processing unit. They are able to do more intensive work. So at the time being, actually, because they are able to handle more difficult tasks, GPU was being experimented as an AI chip. So NVIDIA, as you can see, is the leading producer of AI chips at this moment. So they were being used for making AI chips. Now they are trying to make all new design that is more suitable for artificial intelligence related applications. So with a new architecture. So one, we have the CPU, other is the GPU, and then with some modifications to it, we have the AI chips. So naturally more computing power, more powerful, able to handle data better, able to process it better. More data, more processing, more energy, more difficulty. Plus you want it compact also. So nowadays there is a dedicated class of computer chips known as the AI chips, which are becoming very, very important across various sectors. Now, as I see it from the exam point of view, there is a class of questions in science and tech where they ask us to define a particular technology, in our case AI chips, and its applications or places that they are used. So what are the recent innovations in the industry? So this is a line of thought on which we are to prepare this question, and this will be around 150 words. Right then, so this concludes the session. So thank you for streaming in to IASPrimers with me, Shubhashish. Bye bye, take care and all the best.